The best way to experience Sculpture Milwaukee is by wandering down Wisconsin Avenue to enjoy the artworks up close. Come now and get a personal walking tour of this wide variety of art with Sculpture Milwaukee's project director, Marilu Knode.
Sculpture Milwaukee is in its second year of bringing world-class artwork to downtown Milwaukee along Wisconsin Avenue. This year we have 21 pieces. We're standing in front of Robert Indiana's love sculpture. Indiana started making works based on the word love in 1961. Indiana was thinking about the complexities of love in the 1960s when America was really in a lot of turmoil. He's made this in different sizes and different colors, so you may have seen them elsewhere. Kiki Smith has done works based on the body, but most recently she's been looking at Alice in Wonderland. So this Alice behind me is actually based on the story by Lewis Carroll. Alice is floating. She's a little girl, but a giant shape. And one of the most important things that outdoor sculpture does is it changes our sense of scale. Because of the white paint that the artist has used over her bronze sculpture, she really floats in the landscape. Because of the color, she really stands out from quite a distance. This is the work Reason to Be by Jessica Jackson Hutchins. This is actually a decommissioned bus shelter. She created some beautiful stained glass windows for the shelter to replace the advertisements that we normally see. Inside of the piece, she's put a hammock in this business district as a chance for the workers downtown to really take a break from their work environment, to maybe dream, maybe have a nap. Magdalena Akacik is a Polish artist who emigrated to the United States after World War II. Her work is very often these headless figures, very deeply textured because of the burlap she uses to form them. But her work is often about the inhumanity of humans towards one another. What's unique about this piece, too, is if you go around the back, it's hollow. It's quite dramatic in art history when the body moves forward and the leg breaks the plane. So this is Irvin Verm's Half Big Suit. Irvin Verm is an Austrian artist. And what's interesting about Verm is that the works are both a little comedy and a little tragedy. We see a guy in a jaunty pink suit, like Casual Friday, and yet he's missing part of his body. So we're adopting this really very silly walk, but in fact, he looks like he's about to topple over. It makes you think about the really tricky balance that we all strike in our daily lives. Richard Deakins' piece, Big Time. Deakin is a very well-known British artist. What I love about this piece is that it sort of defies categorization. It looks like it's full of air and it might float away. It looks like a bracelet that I have at home. Deakin is a really broadly generous artist who really wants you to bring your own meaning to the work itself. Glynn's untitled burger with extended arm. You can see it as just a very interesting and distorted figurative piece of bronze sculpture, very traditional, but you'll notice there's some really very odd elements about it. Glynn has cast from Auguste Rodin's Burghers of Calais to create a series of artworks. And she followed Rodin's process of reusing the different body parts of his work. I think that this body's attenuated look maybe reflects some of the things that a lot of our fellow citizens are going through. Ghada Amer's Blue Bra Girls. Ghada is an Egyptian artist who grew up in France, and she really lives between East and West. Ghada's work is really always focused on the female form. Her figures are hidden by the materials that the piece is made from. So you can actually walk around the piece and see her women sort of waving to us from inside. Sanford Bigger's Bam Seated Warrior. When I was working on bringing this piece to Milwaukee, I always sort of assumed that the warrior was a male, but when we opened the crate, we discovered it was a female. Sanford Biggers is an African-American artist who has been taking African power figures and then shooting them. And so if you look closely at this piece, you'll notice there's part of an arm and a leg missing. So Sanford Biggers is really evoking the power of African figures in our American history. Tony Tasset's Mood Sculpture. This is a piece that we had in our first Sculpture Milwaukee, and the piece overwintered with us because we just loved it and thought it brought some really great cheer to downtown Milwaukee. Tony is using the smiley face, which really is the first American emoji. It was designed in 1963. You stack them, but he starts with the purple face on the bottom, looks pretty unhappy, and goes all the way up to yellow on top. I think, well, where am I on this scale of happy to sad? And I often end up at orange, and evidently psychologists have said that most people find them on the orange of daily life, and that's actually pretty great. Cuban artist Yohan Capades' work, Nostalgia. So what you see is a suitcase filled with bricks. This is a bronze cast from the suitcase that Capote used to use when he was going back and forth between Cuba and New York. These bricks are actually from New York City in a way when he was moving back and forth between the two countries because of their geopolitical split. Whenever he would go to one place, he was cut off from the other. Entitled by the Mexican artist Bosco Saudi, he uses clay to create these extremely large cubes, and then he builds a construction out of them. If you look very closely, you can see the different colors of soil and clay that Saudi is using to create his cubes. Not one surface is the same. Just think about the scale of how our cities have been formed over the last 100 years versus the previous 200,000 years. This year, we've commissioned a duo, Shana McCaw and Brent Budsberg, to create the piece behind me called Skew. The wood is from a giant white pine tree that fell down on Brent's family's farm up north. And so they milled the wood and brought it here. Buildings slump and change shape under the forces of weather and nature. The way that Brent built it is that it's pegged with dowels, and so it's very, very sturdy. So this piece is really about the discrepancy between old forms of construction and the landscape and the urban environment that we live in today. Hank Willis Thomas's work, Liberty. On top of it is an arm with a basketball, and this is based on a photograph taken of one of the Harlem Globetrotters in 1986. So Hank is looking at a historic picture of a very well-known male athlete and also the Statue of Liberty. But it really does make us wonder about what role sports play in shaping what we think of as a hero in American culture. This work by Tom Friedman is called Hazmat Love. So it makes you really think about hazardous waste. But what's really funny about this Tom Friedman is as you get really close to it, you can see that the piece is made out of tin foil, things from the kitchen that have been shaped into this character's. Hazmat Love, do we love the disasters that we create in our own world? Is it a baking disaster? Is it a muffin muff-up? It's a really fun piece and really bears a lot of close examination. Behind me is a work by Saul LeWitt called Tower Gubbio. LeWitt, who was one of the founders of minimalism and conceptual art. So he basically makes drawings and allows other people to execute his work. The piece gets narrower but taller as it reaches up. LeWitt is talking about this stripped-down city building. You know, what makes a city building? Bernard Venet's work, 97.5-degree arc times 9. So as a minimalist, Venet is describing the work to you. So this is an arc of 97.5 degrees, and there are 9 of these arcs. The artist is dealing with the urban landscape around us. He's using typical building materials, steel, and doing something very playful with them. Ultimately, it looks as if the wind is blowing these very, very rigid elements into an arc, as if they're going with the wind. Behind me is an artwork by the British artist Gary Hume called Bud Bronze. He's taken something that is normally very bright and made it a very dark, very somber color. There's something really lovely about this piece along the avenue as well, where we're just talking about buildings and concrete and hard landscapes. It's really nice to see this piece honor the landscape that exists underneath all our concrete. American artist John Henry has been making these large-scale geometric abstractions since the 1970s. He also makes these steel materials very expressive. So this bright color of Zach's Tower is a really very cheerful way to look up through the sky. Marker number 2. Mel is based in New York City, and he is very well known for using found materials that's made of cement. It seems very heavy in a way, and yet because of the way the artist has managed it, it also seems very light. On the ground below me is a work by Serbian artist Ana Pravaci. So the shadow on the ground is actually of a very well-known sculpture Michelangelo's David. And so in a really very humorous way, Anna Pravacci, as an artist, is talking about how the shadow of very famous artworks like this really weigh heavy on every generation of artists who are trying to make something substantial and meaningful. You've seen 21 works by 22 different artists. Everything in our city landscape was designed by someone who thinks about function but also beauty. And so Sculpture Milwaukee is bringing another layer to the already very busy environment that Milwaukee has in its downtown area.
There is still so much more to learn about the art and artists of Sculpture Milwaukee. Find out more and plan your visit at the official website, sculpturemilwaukee.com, or download the Walking Tour app on your smartphone.